Well, hello. Welcome to the Educator Summit. I'm so happy to be back with you again for another summit. And today we're going to talk all about comprehension. Before we get to that, I want to introduce myself. My name is Anna Geiger. I was a classroom teacher, primarily first and second grade, and earned my master's degree back in 2005. In 2007, my oldest was born. She's now 16 and a junior in high school, and our youngest is 8. So I'm taking care of my kids, but I also run my business, The Measured Mom, which I began way back in 2013. So my oldest was 5 years old, and she had 3 little brothers, and I was having a hard time keeping up, and I felt that I wasn't doing as many learning activities with my younger kids as I had done with my older ones. So I created the website as a way to keep myself accountable and also to remind myself of the kind of mother I wanted to be: more thoughtful, more patient, more measured. So I called it The Measured Mom. Very quickly, though, I realized I'd rather not write about parenting. I'd rather only write about teaching. So I wrote about the things I was doing with my kids, and then it expanded into resources for pre-K through third grade teachers, and that's what it is today. I began our membership site in 2019, and also that year I began my podcast called Triple R Teaching, which stands for Reflect, Refine, Recharge, and I have weekly episodes, so I hope you'll check that out. Around this time, also in 2019, I made a shift from balanced to structured literacy, and that was really hard for me. It was really hard to accept that many of the things that I thought were true about how reading works and how to best teach reading were not actually based on research. So I made some big shifts on my website, communicated a lot of things to my email subscribers, redid my online course, did a whole lot of study, and then in 2022, I was Orton Gillingham certified and also earned a Science of Reading graduate certificate. So that's where we are now. That's who I am. Let's go ahead and get right into the workshop, How to Build Reading Comprehension, the Science of Reading Way. We're going to talk now about background knowledge. And if you're really following the science of reading, you know that this is a big, big discussion. A lot of it has to do with the book that Natalie Wexler wrote called The Knowledge Gap. There's something called the Knowledge Matters campaign. They had a podcast. This is all really good because we know that background knowledge is very important for understanding the text in front of us. Background knowledge is all the knowledge a reader brings to the reading task. And to create a mental model, which we talked about way back at the beginning, students must combine the words of the text, so the literal representation, with their background knowledge. Very, very important. If you don't have much background knowledge, the text isn't going to make a lot of sense to you. So you might wonder, why in today's world of smartphones and Google do we need to teach knowledge? We have some very good reasons. Number one, it helps you make inferences, so it helps you read between the lines. It gives you a place to attach new information. Marilyn Adams, she wrote the book Beginning to Read way back in 1990. You could call her an OG in the science of reading movement. She's fabulous. Still alive, very quiet these days. I don't hear much from her, but she has contributed so much to the science of reading. And she calls background knowledge mental Velcro. It gives you a place to attach it. It also frees up space in working memory. So working memory has to do with a theory called cognitive load theory, which is this idea that you only think about so many things at once while you're trying to figure out a problem, while you're trying to learn something. And if you crowd that space with information that's new that you didn't already know, it can make it harder for you to understand the text. So if you have a lot of information in your long-term memory, that's your background knowledge, then it opens up space in your working memory for you to think deeply about something. Now, when you're trying to decide what background knowledge should I teach, what information should I give, because this shouldn't take long, it should take only a couple of minutes before reading a text to or with your students, you want to ask yourself questions like these. These come from Dr. Anita Archer. So what can I teach that will make it easier for my students to learn new knowledge? What can I teach that will reduce cognitive overload? So basically, what can I teach that will reduce confusion? What information will be useful for understanding this text and others on the same topic? And what information will increase motivation so they actually want to listen to this text? So imagine I'm going to read to my students the book Henry's Freedom Box. This is a true story about a man who mailed himself from Virginia to Philadelphia to free himself from slavery. My students will understand this book better if I give a brief history of slavery in the United States. And I'm talking brief, right? Just a minute or so. I can reduce cognitive overload by explaining that the Underground Railroad was not a real railroad. It's just the word that we use to describe a secret network of people helping enslaved people escape. And I can increase motivation by asking my students to think about what it might take to mail yourself from one place to another. When you're thinking about how to build background knowledge for a book, here are some great steps. These come from a presentation that Dr. Sharon Vaughn gave for the International Dyslexia Association. You could first state the big ideas of the unit or topic, connect the new ideas to prior learning, select a tool for building background knowledge, and that could be a quick YouTube video, 2 minutes. It could be reading a very, very short book on the same topic that's much easier. It could be showing a picture. It could be showing a physical object. Then you're going to explain the new information and ask important questions to get students ready to read or listen to the text. So let's say that I'm going to be reading Turtle and Tortoise Are Not Friends to my students. I could start by stating the big idea. Today, I'm going to read Turtle and Tortoise Are Not Friends by Mike Rice. These two creatures are assigned the same enclosure at the zoo. Turtles and tortoises are a lot alike, but these two animals are not friends because they think they're so different. Then I would move on to connect. I want to connect the story to what they already know. Have you ever seen a turtle before? I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'm going to put out my hand, and I want you to say the answer. I'll probably make these really basic questions that I think most of my students will be able to answer. So I'll start by saying, a turtle is covered with a hard shell. A turtle is not a bird. It's not a fish. A turtle is a reptile. Now, they might not all know that, but if I think students would know that, that would be an example statement I could make. A turtle is in danger. It might put its head inside its shell. Okay, so that was my connecting the new ideas to prior learning, and then I could select a tool. I'm going to show a very quick YouTube video about how turtles and tortoises are the same and how they're different. The video is going to do the explaining work for me, and then I'm going to ask a couple questions. What's one way that turtles and tortoises are the same? Turn to your partner and tell them one way that these animals are the same. What's one way that they are different? Turn to your partner and tell them one way they are different. So this does not have to take long. It can take 5 minutes or less. Built background knowledge, and now I'm ready to read the book to my students.